Hello, welcome to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali.
And I'm Steve Forbes.
Today, the Saints travel to Stamford Bridge to take on the Blues in search of our first win of this season. And as always, we have a great show lined up for you with a great lineup of guests. With us once again is former Saints captain Dean Hammond. And joining us for the first time since our clash with Manchester United is former Daily Echo chief sports writer Adam Leitch. Adam, long time no see. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, guys. It's lovely to be back. It's been a pretty manic month for me. I've been on the road with Super League Triathlon, been sort of globetrotting all over the world, putting on events. But yeah, back in Britain to some beautiful weather, and hoping I'll be a lucky omen today, and we'll see a win.
Oh, fingers crossed. And Dean, great to have you back with us as always. Are you doing okay?
I'm very well, very well. You know, not as it had an interesting month like Adam has, but it's great to have him back. It is, and yeah, looking forward to the game.
It's great to see you guys again. Now, we're going to have the team news in about 15 minutes' time. Stuart Armstrong has been training with the squad and he's travelled as well to West London today. He's going to be assessed before the game. Armando Broa actually can't play because it's his parent club that he's on loan from. So, Adam, as it's your first time with us in a little while, we'll come to you first. Given that last week's defeat against Wolves, do you expect Ralph maybe to do a bit of tinkering with the squad or the tactics today?
I think a lot depends on Stuart Armstrong for me, because I feel like if he's fit and he's actually ready to play and play a significant amount of time, then he comes back into the team straight away for me, because I feel like he is the missing link for Saints at the moment. They haven't quite linked midfield and attack in the way that they have done in the past under Ralph, and Stuart Armstrong has been a really key ingredient in doing that. And I think that if he is available, then you get him in the team as soon as you can, because the extra that he brings, the extra the energy that he brings into attack anyway, but then that link play that he's got, I think Saints just desperately need that. Today's a hard game anyway against Chelsea. It might not be a key ingredient that means they win, because it's a very challenging game regardless. But I think going forward, and when you look at the fixtures they've got coming up, I think it's vital to get him back in the team as soon as they can.
And Dean, what about you then? How do you think Saints will line up to take on Chelsea this afternoon?
Well, I agree with Adam. If Stuart Armstrong's fit, I'd love to see him back in the team, because I think he makes such a difference. The only fear is that he hasn't had much football. He's not had a proper pre-season. It's whether you risk him coming back and then repeating the injury. It's a big ask as well, especially when you're playing like a team against Chelsea. But I'd love to see him involved today, whether that's from the bench or starting. Potentially, I think the team will be very similar to the game against Man City, because that performance, away performance, the way they pressed Chelsea, defensively strong, was very, very good. And I think Ralph can look at that game, analyse that game and think, okay, let's try and repeat that. Chelsea are a little bit different, physically stronger and play a little bit different to Man City. But I think that approach could really work. If you look at Man City when they played at Chelsea last week, the way they pressed Chelsea, didn't allow them any time on the ball. I think Southampton have got the players to be able to do that. So I don't think there'll be many changes. Personally, I'd love to see Nathan Tella get an opportunity. I do. I think he's not been too involved this season. And with his pace, his fearless approach, I think it could benefit the team.
Adam, there was clearly a lot of disappointment after last week's defeat against Wolves. What did you make of Southampton going forward? Because we did have quite a bit of possession, but it just wasn't clicking in the final third.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like that's kind of the story of where Saints are at the moment. That it's not. There's a lot of good work still here, and I think that I think some people may be getting a bit overly down about where they are at the moment as a team, because it doesn't feel like it's too far away, but it's not quite happening, and particularly in the final third. I guess it's difficult. They're adjusting to life without Danny Ings, which is challenging, and it's going to take them time. He's one of the best players, one of the best strikers outside the top six in the Premier League. And for any team to come to terms with not having him is difficult. I also think that there is an argument around where Saints have strengthened, how they have strengthened, because they have suddenly gone back to a lot of players who maybe were out of the picture before. You look at Shane Long's getting back in the team, albeit off the bench, Nathan Redmond, Elianusi. These are all guys who a little while ago were kind of considered not good enough, really, and they're now playing. So there's that conversation as well. But I think really Saints need to be able to do more with their possession. They need to be more threatening the way they play. And it's been an interesting, there were some interesting statistics this week about how the teams with the highest, the most active presses were actually not doing that great in the Premier League. And that's an interesting turnaround from what we've seen in previous years, and an interesting trend of things changing in the Premier League, perhaps. But the key for Saints is if they're going to play possession football, you have to try and make it threatening as well. There's no point in keeping the ball for keeping the ball's sake. Yes, against, I guess, a top 6 team, a Chelsea, you do keep possession a little bit. You want to try and get your foot on the ball. You want to try and kill a bit of the game as much as you can. But when you're playing a Wolves at home, then your possession has to equate to something, especially if a team's prepared to get deep, put men behind the ball. There's no point in just playing in front of them. You've got to try and play around them, between them, behind them. And that's really where Saints are struggling at the moment. And I think that's why people are getting a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, it was disappointing, wasn't it? Especially after a few impressive displays defensively in games before that. Dean, if you wouldn't mind, could you talk us through the goal we conceded and where, in your opinion, could we have done better in that situation?
Well, if you look at the setup, actually defensively is fine. Actually, from the team, it's an individual area from Bednarak. I think he misreads the flight of the ball. He tries to nick in front of, and win the ball, and then is not able to head it. And then the Wolves player is in behind. It's a superb finish. It really, really is. He shows really good strength, shows really good pace, good composure, and it's an excellent finish. I think Bednarak will be disappointed on 2 occasions. The initial part where he tries to win the ball, his recovery where he drives in, Salisu comes across and kind of makes a half tackle, slips, misjudges again the ball. So I think there's 2 or 3 errors within the move, within the moment, that the 2 centre-halves will look at and think they could have definitely done better. But I don't want to take away, it's a superb finish. It really is, especially at the end where he's very, very patient and very, very composed, and it's a good finish. But I think Bednarak, he's just out-muscled. He loses the flight of the ball. Salisu does the right thing and tries to cover around and help out his partner, but slips and overcommits himself. So just 2 or 3 errors that could easily have been avoided, I think, in my opinion.
Right, well, let's hear from the boss now, because Ralph has been speaking about the pressure the team are under after last week's defeat.
When we talked last week, we talked about the encouraging start, but the importance of trying to get the 3 points over the line against Wolves. It didn't happen, and now it's Chelsea and then the break. So how much has last Sunday added to the overall pressure on the team and you, whatever, to get that first win? I mean, how much of a setback was it?
Yeah, a big setback for sure, because the chance was there to win the game. And I think we have been also definitely a more active team. I think we had 18 shots on goal, 6 on target, and they had 5, and we lose this game at home. Is absolutely, a disaster for us, because the 3 points would definitely help us. But the league is very long. We had, I think, a tough schedule in the beginning, definitely with a lot of very good teams. But yes, we know that we need to take the first win, and this is what we are looking in every game, and we have shown this, that we can do this in Chelsea, and there's always a chance to do it.
There was Ralph Hasenhüttl speaking there. Adam, Ralph also mentioned in his press conference about Stuart Armstrong being back in training. If he does feature today, how important could that be?
I think, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Steve, him getting back in, whenever that happens, whether it's today or whether it's down the line, is a really important step for Saints. He's been such a great signing for the club and such a consistent presence. He's one of those guys. I'm not sure how on the radar he is of fans that are outside of Southampton. He's not like an overly fancy or attractive type of player that attracts a lot of interest, but Southampton fans and his teammates in particular know what he brings, which is a huge work ethic, and an ability to be alongside that, to be very creative, to be that link player that joins the midfield and the attack. He is. I've made the comparison before, but he's very reminiscent in my mind of Stephen Davis. Slightly different qualities in some areas, but that kind of player that sort of goes a little bit under the radar because they can sometimes play as either perhaps a wide man, almost a number 10, but they're not traditionally what you think of as a number 10, like a Messi or a Ronaldo or somebody like that. But for Southampton, he's an absolute key player for them. And really, I think if this season's gonna pick up and gain momentum, I honestly believe Stuart Armstrong will be key to that. They can't. He is one of their key players, and they can't really continue without him for a long period of time without really feeling the effects. And also, I think for the established players that have been there a while, again, thinking about Danny Ings' departure, and still there's a bit of that lag. Those experienced guys that have been there, they've been around the game and they've been around the club a while, and they're very good players. They're the leaders that Saints need on the pitch right now. They're the guys that need to carry the team forward, and some of the new signings and the younger players. And Stuart Armstrong, again, a great character, a great leader on the pitch as well, and in the changing room. So they just need him back.
Yeah, great to see him travelling today, and we'll have to wait and see what the team news brings in just under 5 minutes' time now. But Dean, it's really not a great stat, but Southampton actually haven't won a Premier League match without Stuart Armstrong since December 2019. Obviously, he has played a lot of matches, but what else does he bring to the side that, as Adam says, makes him such a key player?
Well, Kenzie, it just shows how important of a player he is. And I think that goes for on and off the pitch. Adam's mentioned there, I think he's a huge character. He's one of the more experienced players now. I think he's very underappreciated by, like say, people outside of Southampton. But he brings real balance to the team, I think, defensively and attacking wise. Attacking wise, he has that spark, he has that imagination, that little bit of creativity that I think Southampton have been missing. But also he can get a goal. Obviously, seen from the clips here, he gets his fair shares of goal as well. But he works so hard, the pressing as well. He really understands the game and the role that he needs to play within the team. Very intelligent footballer. So I think he links everything together. And I think what he does, he makes other players around him better. They feel more comfortable when they see him on the team sheet. And I think he's an exceptional player. He really is. And it's going to take a little bit of time. If he's not had a pre-season, if he's not played games, he needs 2 or 3 games to get up to speed. But he has a huge influence on this team. And I think that when he does come back and he is fit, he will have an impact and you'll see a difference because he can get you a goal, he can create goals, but defensively as well, he understands the role he plays within the team. And that's really important.
Now, Saints have had a tough start to the season, but have actually picked up more points than in the corresponding fixtures from last season. We can have a look at the graphic here. Adam, what have you made of the results that Saints have picked up so far?
I mean, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, but it's not been bad. It's not been bad. I mean, it was only really when you feel like, honestly, the Wolves game was one where the result kind of was less than you would have hoped. The others, I think you could accept. And let's be fair. People are getting down on Saints this season, but the key period for Saints, we always knew this was a tough start. The key period comes soon because they've got a lot of teams that are kind of in and around them in the table to play back to back, really, in that period after the international break and leading up to when they face Liverpool. That period there with, I think, 5 fixtures against your Watford, your Norwich, your Aston Villa, Leeds, they are going to be absolutely crucial for Saints. And really, I think, for me, I always felt 10 games was about the right time to assess where the team was in the season, 10, 11 matches. I think you've actually then you are going to have played a little bit of a mixture of sides most years. And I think that's the case for Saints. They've played a lot of tough games already. And the results have been not bad, not amazing, but not bad either. It's just that they've missed that win. That one win would have made all the difference to how it feels right now, I think. But for me, you just need to be patient because the big moment is coming up after this international break. That is the really crucial moment. A win today would be great, but really for me, that little run that's coming up soon, that's kind of where we'll find out where Saints are really going to be this season.
Well, hopefully that big moment, as you say, Adam, will be coming later on at Stamford Bridge. But who will be in the starting 11 to hopefully pick up our first win of the season? Well, let's find out, shall we? Because we can bring you the team news now. Here it is. Theo Walcott and Nathan Tella do come into the starting 11. So let's run you through that now, shall we? In goal, Alex McCarthy, Tino Livramento, Mohamed Salisu, Jan Bednarek and Carl Walker-Peters make up the back four. In midfield, our captain James Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeu. We're not quite sure how this front four will set up, but we assume out wide Theo Walcott and Nathan Redmond, and then the forwards Adam Armstrong and Nathan Tella. The Southampton substitutes then are as follows: Fraser Forster, Roman Perraud, Lianco, Ibrahima Diallo, Mohamed Alianusi, Musa Gineppo, Stuart Armstrong, Shane Long and Ché Adams. So actually quite a lot to unpack there. Let's come to you first, Dean, then. We know you were really hoping to see Nathan Tella involved and given a chance today. You said his pace could really inject something different into the side. So how pleased are you with that starting 11?
Really pleased. I'm pleased for Nathan to get that opportunity. I think he's had to be patient. I think he had a real impact last season. The one question mark or interest in is where he will play, whether he'll play wide or he'll play up front. Personally, I think I would play him wide. And then, Theo Walcott coming into the team, Nathan Redmond as well. We've also seen Nathan Redmond play up front, just behind Armstrong. Whether he'll do that and almost play as a number 10 and Theo Walcott will play wide, or Theo Walcott will play up front. So I think there's a real blend there. There's a good flexibility within that 3 or 4. Or even the manager could even have just looking at change shape maybe. Maybe he'll go 4, the 2 central midfielders will hold and sit, and then you have a 3 and then Armstrong up front on his own. Because I think where Chelsea's strength is narrow. They play with the wing back sort of thing. They haven't got real strength wide. So you can almost allow the Southampton fullbacks in Livramento and Walker-Peters deal with that in a one-on-one duel. And then the centre of the park, the middle of the pitch is really, really important. So that's whether Southampton are going to press, where they'll need numbers, or if they win the ball up, can they attack at pace? And I think that's what the manager's gone for there. When they get the ball, have they got a bit more creativity in the team and a bit more pace to really try and hurt Chelsea?
Yeah, Adam, this 11 does throw up a few question marks, doesn't it? Are you in agreement with Dean? How would you suggest that this team will set up today?
Well, I'm in complete agreement with Dean. I totally feel like watching Chelsea this season. That go through the middle is their strength, and they will try they'll be patient. They're happy to try and take you on. If you want to pack men in that area, they're happy to keep playing that way. They don't really compromise in the way that Man City often don't in those sort of areas as well. They're confident in their abilities, but I do think it gives teams small chance against them in the sense that you can kind of strangle them for possession in those areas to a degree. And I think that's what Southampton will try and do when you look at this team. I think they probably will pack in fairly tight. There's obviously a lot of attacking options. I'm not sure how many of them we're going to see playing on the shoulder of the last defender other than Adam Armstrong. I think the others will probably be relatively narrow, trying to get out wide and try and expose Chelsea in those areas when they get an opportunity. How they'll line up, I'm not sure. But like Dean, I'm excited to see Nathan Tella given another opportunity. I mean, it's a tough one, be thrown in for a game against Chelsea where you're probably going to have to do a lot of work in terms of defensive discipline rather than just pure, being able to use your pace and express yourself quite as much. But I'm glad to see him get an opportunity. And Theo Walcott as well was another guy who's used to playing in these kind of games. He's used to playing against very, very top level opposition. He's used to having to be disciplined and again, another experienced player, which is a key when you're playing some of the top teams. But despite the number of attacking players on the pitch, I wouldn't expect Saints to be too expansive. But it gives them plenty of options, and also it keeps Chelsea on their toes as well. And being honest, I think when you've got those kind of quality of players and you've got that express pace of Tella in behind, they can't take too many liberties with just pushing men up the pitch and leaving themselves exposed. And I think that's a wise thing from Ralph from a tactical point of view as well.
Well, let's touch on the fullbacks for the moment, Dean. Tino Livramento, he's going to be relishing the opportunity to come up against his former club, and Carl Walker-Peters is preferred at left back. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Livramento has been a revelation. He really has. He's been superb all season. Athletic, fantastic on the ball, willing to attack. And I think he'll look forward to this game. I think it's a little bit different because Chelsea have not let him go. As much as I understand, Chelsea wanted to keep him. They rated him as a player, but he wanted to come away and play first team football. So I think he'll look forward to going back to Chelsea. Has he got a point to prove? He'll want to prove that he was good enough to play at Chelsea. But if he just continues playing the way he has this season, he doesn't need to do any more than that because he's been so impressive. He really, really has. And I actually fancy him against Alonso. Alonso is not the most athletic player. So I'm looking forward to that. And Kyle Walker-Peters, would prefer to play at right back, but can do a job at left back and gives that attacking threat as well. It's a little bit unbalanced because he'll want to come inside. He'll want to come a little bit narrow, but he can go on the outside. He's got that flexibility. He's pretty strong on both feet. So I think he's done fine there. He's done okay. But yeah, naturally, I think Pero is left-footed and does bring balance to the team. But Kyle Walker-Peters is doing a fine job at left back at the moment.
Well, Stamford Bridge, really not a bad hunting ground for us at all. And the fans are certainly feeling pretty good going into this one, actually. Plenty of positivity coming in across our social channels. Let's take a look at what's being said from those of you watching along at home. Alan, hello to you. He's got in touch and says, it is going to be a tough game. And in order to win, we have to be on our top game. Guys, you can do it. Come on, you Saints. Andrew, good afternoon. He says he's going for a 0-0 or a 1-0 to Saints. Barry Williams is joining us all the way from Canada. Thanks for your company. He says shooting boots on today. Oh, Fresh on YouTube is also with us and says, come on, boys. Clay has said Saints are playing good football, just need better results. Ryan, hello to you. Ryan Auckland says, come on, Saints. Anyone can beat Chelsea on their day. And we have a comment here from Darcy Ward on YouTube as well. She says, got a good feeling today. We always play quite well against Chelsea. Yeah, Adam, we certainly do, because in the 9 matches we've played there since coming back into the Premier League, we've actually only lost 3 of them. So actually we do seem to fare quite well at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, it's strange how these things happen. I'd love to be able to offer some real insight as to why that's happened, but it's just kind of these freaks that you get where sometimes there are some teams that you just seem to be unable to beat no matter what happens, and other teams that actually you do pretty well against. It's semi-inexplicable, and I think that's been the case against Chelsea. I mean, it has been a happy hunting ground, and even before in the previous stint in the Premier League, before the relegations, there were some good results, some good wins at Stamford Bridge as well. It just seems to have been the way in the last 20 years that Saints have done pretty well. When you consider how good a club Chelsea have been in that period, we're talking really the Abramovich era, where they've had top players, top world-class superstar players, and Saints have done really well there. They have seemed to have played them at quite opportune moments, which has been good. They've played them often when they seem to have had a manager who's struggling and feels like they're about to get sacked, or there's things like that going on, but you still need to beat them. And there are some memorable wins, really, and not least in my mind the 2015 win, particularly because Williams scored really early in that one, and you kind of felt like, here we go, this could be an absolute pummeling. The Saints came back and won, and actually won that game relatively comfortably. And I think we're actually disappointed they only won 3-1. It was a top performance, but it has been a happy hunting ground for Saints. Whatever the reason, I don't know, but it has been a good one for them. So it's not somewhere I think that you go with trepidation, I suppose, other than you're playing a top team. And I guess that the only thing to say to counter that slightly is that obviously we look at it from the fullness of time and a lot of years of watching Saints, as whereas the players now are all at the club a lot less, and they're looking at it in terms of Chelsea being a top team this year in the Premier League. So doesn't seem quite as big a boost to them, but I think the fans going there will have plenty of happy memories to draw upon, and hoping for another one today.
Yeah, certainly. Well, specifically looking, Dean, at last season's match, which was a 3-3 draw. It's obviously a very good point, and the first goal owed much to Southampton's high pressing. Is this what we've got to do today, not give Chelsea any time on the ball?
Well, it was a brilliant result last season. I think even the game that Southampton could have potentially won, actually. It was a really, really good point. But, this is a different Chelsea team now. That Chelsea team was under Frank Lampard. This is Tuchel is a different type of manager. They're European champions. But yes, I think if this week has shown anything against Chelsea, Man City went to them and pressed them and caused them problems and asked them questions, and they didn't quite have the answers. And then during a week in the Champions League, they've gone to Juventus with a team that sat in, kept a really good shape and played on the counter-attack. So it's evident that you can get a result against Chelsea. You can cause them problems. But I think with the team that Ralph's put out today, he's got high energy in the team. He'll want to try and press them narrow, try and keep the pitch narrow and small, not allowing them to switch play when they get opportunities or play through the middle or get the ball into Lukaku. So I would try and make the pitch as small as you can, because Lukaku's a strong runner, but he's not lightning quick. He's not going to run away from you. So I think Salisu will be able to match him for pace. So I would try and make the pitch as condensed as I possibly could, press them, make them feel uncomfortable and put them under pressure to make decisions quick.
Well, Adam, the second goal was certainly something, wasn't it? With Ché Adams eventually finding the back of the net. He obviously starts on the bench today, which will no doubt be disappointing for him. But if he is introduced, just how much could he do with a goal today?
I mean, he's desperate for a goal, really. I think it's interesting that he has dropped to the bench, because funny enough, I was thinking about this yesterday quite a lot. And I thought the difference with the previous couple of seasons is if Ché has had a time where he's had a dip, Ralph has pulled him out, whether it's for a little period, as we saw in the first season that he was with the club, or for a slightly shorter period, as we saw in the second season. He's had that opportunity to change him, because he's been able to largely rely on Danny at the time when Danny Ings is playing, Danny Ings to be up there. Whereas now Ché is kind of more of one of the leaders of the team. It's harder to leave him out on the side, which makes it difficult if a player is naturally dipping in confidence. So I'm kind of glad in a way, and I don't mean this to sound disrespectful to Ché, but I'm kind of glad that Ralph has made the decision to leave him out, because I think it at least shows that Ralph has confidence in faith in the other options that he has, and that he is prepared to use them, and that he doesn't have to just persist with a small band of players purely because he feels like he doesn't have anything else. So I think actually, when you look at it, though it's disappointing for Ché, I think it's a good thing overall for Saints that feels he's able to do it. And I think it's a good thing for Ché to take a break. And yeah, he just needs a goal. I mean, it feels a bit like the first season he was with Saints over again, where we saw a lot of good performances from him. He wasn't playing poorly at all in that period. In fact, he was very good, but he just couldn't get a goal. Nothing went for him. He got a bit low on confidence as well, and so he kind of was sort of half hitting shots. And eventually, he had that break. He came in and he really got going and found his feet in the Premier League. And maybe he is just a bit of a confidence player, like some strikers are, and he needs that belief. And sometimes to get that, as a striker, they need to take a step back, and the manager has to be the one to pull them back and say, no, you need a break, and then I'll put you back in when the time is right. And so I think it's actually a healthy thing for Saints that the decision's been made to do this today.
Well, sticking with the striker chat, Dean, you did touch on Romelu Lukaku a moment ago. He scored 9 goals in 12 games against Southampton. That's the most he's scored against any single opponent in the Premier League, so clearly likes playing against the Saints. How exactly do we deal with him today?
Well, it's tough, Steve, because he's a world-class striker. He really is, with amazing attributes. He's physically strong. His touch has improved. I think his awareness has improved with his back to goal. Like I say, he can run in behind, but doesn't really want to. And he's a very good goal scorer. So I think you just prevent the service into him. I think that's important. Don't allow quality crosses into the box. Don't allow the ball to go into his feet so he can spin you. Like we saw with the Wolves goal, Bednarek getting really close. I don't think physically you can battle with Lukaku. So you want to get tight, but you can give yourself a little bit of room. But it's really, really tough because he is a top player. But I think if Southampton can press the ball and then not allow that service into him, especially around the box or within the box, that will be really, really important. So not allowing the midfield players, especially timing the ball to pick a pass and pick out Lukaku's run, because his movement's clever and he's good as well. So it's a tough test. It really is. One of the best strikers in the world. But I think if you looked at the game, like I say, against Man City, they didn't allow the service into him. And then if you looked at the Juventus game, they didn't let the ball into him. So they made the areas that Lukaku was working in really compact with a lot of bodies around him. So it's going to take a lot of concentration, a lot of communication, but it's possible. It's definitely possible.
Well, Dean and Adam, before we come to you for your score predictions, before we say goodbye, let's hear from the fans watching along at home for the final time. Stephen Townsend's got in touch and says it is an interesting lineup. I hope to see the lads just go for it and pick up some points. Yes, indeed. Tom on YouTube says, pleased to see Teller get a start. Carl is also with us. Hello to you. He says, we've got this, Saints. Love that positivity. Joe Simmons says, come on, Saints, we can do it. Jonah on YouTube has said, come on, you Saints. And Kenny in Weymouth is going for a 3-2 Saints win today. So, Adam, let's come to you for your thoughts then, shall we? I will add, put some pressure on you before I ask you. You are the only person to correctly predict a scoreline so far this season. So can you keep your 100% record? What are you going with today?
Well, I mean, almost certainly not. But I'll give it a go. I think today's a tough test for Saints, and I don't want to write off a game because I think that they aren't without hope in this match at all. Far from it, but I feel like the bigger tests really for them are to come after the international break. Lukaku worries me simply because I've seen him score so many times against Saints, and I think Bednarek in particular is gonna have to really stand up today, because I think that Lukaku will target him in particular for the physical side of the game that he can deliver. Like Dean said, he's not lightning quick, but he is so strong, and I think that he will try and test Bednarek to the max today if he can get on him. However, I actually have just a funny feeling that maybe this might be another draw for Saints today. I think that probably is optimistic, if I'm honest, but what the hell, maybe the sun has got to me from Malibu still. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens after the match. But Dean, listen, we were talking about how exciting that front four is looking. As Adam's just said, Chelsea do come with their threats. But what do you think the result will be today?
Well, it's going to be a tough test. It really is. But if you look at the season so far, I think Southampton have raised their game for the toughest test. The performance against Man City was fantastic. And probably, if you look at it, in my opinion, deserved a penalty and could have won the game. So it's got to be a similar performance to that. Southampton are going to have to be brilliant today. There's no getting away from that. They're going to have to be brilliant and at their best. And it's going to be a tough test because Chelsea will want to respond because they've had a tough week. But I'm like with Adam, and I was going to go 1-1, and if I'm not allowed to go 1-1, I'm going to go even more optimistic, and I'll go for a 2-1 Southampton win.
I like it. Great stuff. Well, Dean, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today on Saints Live. We've got just under 45 minutes left until kick-off at Stamford Bridge, where Southampton are looking for their first win of the Premier League season in West London. We'll all be back after the game for the final whistle with your post-match reaction and analysis from the guys too. So do enjoy the match, and we'll see you soon.